Searching for greatness in a sea of the dying and shameless, a sea of the aimless. I don't wanna be one of the nameless. I'ma wake up with the mindset that one day I'm gonna make it. And I don't think I'll be fine if I don't break my limitations. Don't try to stop me, I exist to write my own story. I'll make a decision if I want some peace or if I want the glory. Don't want a life that is complacent or possibly boring. I just want a life that is worth every day exploring.
My whole life I just wanted someone who would notice me. My whole life I just wanted to be somebody to be. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, yeah, I just wanna be great. Yeah, I just wanna be great.
Everybody, welcome to the One Pride podcast. And we took all things Detroit Lions news and rumors, and we have a really good time at doing so. And I got my good friend here, Ant-Man, with us. What's going on, Ant-Man?
Hey, what up, down, Mike? Not much going on here. Just hanging around on Thursday with the GOAT of Lions YouTube. What can I say? It's good fun as always.
Hey, you say goats, you must be looking in the mirror. Folks, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to Roar to Lions UK. That's the Ant-Man. That's his channel over there. You all know I love it. It's epic. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Also, here in a little bit, I will be on the Huge Show for a couple hours, actually, in West Michigan, 96.1 FM. Huge Show. I'll be there from 4 to 6. So, yeah, man. So if you want to hear more Detroit Lions stuff, go ahead and do that. And if you're not in the area, it's really simple. It's the Huge Show on the internet, and you can actually hear the radio live. And Jeff Iufredi just hit me up, so I will hit him up after I get live streaming done because I can't talk to him at the same time. Ant-Man, I got to say this, man. We all knew it was happening. We all knew it was going to happen. Walker, first name Tracy, no longer a Detroit Lion, was released. Saves $5.5 million this year. We get dead cap of $7 million. What do you think about Tracy Walker being released?
I mean, it was a necessary move at the end of the day, wasn't it? Unfortunately, he's just not been able to bounce back from the injury like we'd hoped. And we've seen the development of the younger guys there. Iffy, noticeably this year. We saw what Kirby can do year one. You know, it's time to put it in the hands of the youngsters and let them get ahead with it and move on. You know, unfortunately, we are not the Detroit Lions of old where we could kind of keep these guys around and keep hoping to see if it was going to work. We've got Super Bowls to go and win now, and we have to make these difficult decisions. And it is very sad to see him go because he's been through some tough times here. He's given this team a lot, and I wish him nothing but the best. Hope he lands on a good team, gets an opportunity. But for us, it was a move we needed to make. It frees up valuable cap, you know, gives the young guys a chance going forward. And yeah, it had to be done. It'll be the first of many moves reshaping this roster so we can go for the big one next year.
Yep, everybody knew it was going to happen. I actually did a video of 4 players that could be cut that'd be surprised. The reason he was on a list is not a surprise at all. We all kind of expected it. You can't pay a backup safety the amount of money he was getting paid to be sitting on a bench. It's just not working, especially when you got a Futu Melifonwu, Kirby Joseph, and Brian Branch just tearing it up at that position. So it makes a lot of sense for the Detroit Lions to go ahead and release Tracy Walker. Don't really care what he does going for the future of his career. Hopefully it's a good one, and hopefully he goes to a team not in the NFC North and does well. Got no hate for my man right there at all. And hopefully he gets it done. A report came out today that, again, still we don't know if we're going to bring in Jonah Jackson back to the Detroit Lions. Some say that it's not going to happen. Some say it still could happen. That's the latest rumors around here is obviously he rejected the contract at the beginning of the year. We all know that, but doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't mean he can't come back. Hey, I want Jonah Jackson to come back. I think you know what you have with him. It's just going to be difficult, but hopefully the Lions can re-sign Jonah Jackson, Ant.
Oh, yeah. I've always been pro Jonah. I'm really big on him and this team. And, of course, we've drafted him. You kind of want to keep your guys to draft and develop them and kind of follow that mantra that Brad does. And he's big on this line. I know people not the injuries, but he's been fairly healthy for the vast majority of his career before this year. And every offensive lineman's going to have a dicky year with injuries. So, I don't really matter about that too much. Obviously, the money comes into consideration because we've got so many big contracts coming up with the franchise cornerstones that we do have to be sensible. But I would like to think it's a case of, he bet on himself this year because I think coming into this year, he was a steady guard. If he could have had a really good year, he could have catapulted his money up and maybe got a bag more. Not happened because of the injuries, but, if he's going to test free agency, see what people are offering, fine. But I would still hope that we can get him back here and get him on a deal because to get that sewn up, it just means it's one less space to fill on your roster. And if you want one thing that's working properly and not full of rookies, it's your offensive line. If you've got an experienced veteran offensive line, your life is so much easier. And we know him here. We love him here. So, yeah, I've got no issues with him trying the market, and I hope we can get him back. But I don't know. Who knows at this point?
Who knows at this point? I am with you right there. Joey says, how much do you think Jonah Jackson projected to get? I'm thinking it's going to probably be, he wants to get top 5 guard money. I don't know if he's going to get it, but that's what he wants to get. I think 10 is probably where he should be at. I don't think he's the best guard in the world, but he should get a decent pay increase. It's difficult to talk about what they're going to get because you don't know what other teams are going to do. That's the thing. Is like all it takes is one team to throw a big old contract out there, and then the numbers completely change there, Ant. It's hard. It's hard to see.
It is, yeah. You just don't know. Like say, markets get reset and changed all the time. The wide receiver market's about to be reset. The tackle market's going to be reset when Penny's paid, etc. I mean, for me, I'd love it if you could give him a deal like we gave Big V when he came here. We gave him, 5 years, $50 million there or thereabouts, and he was an established guard in the NFL at this point. Like, something like that or a little bit more would, I think, be a terrific deal for us if you could sort of keep it under that 15 range. But, people go guards are easy to replace in that, but you see the offensive lines around the league, they're trash. I don't think, I don't make a lot of the guard play around here. I think even good, reliable, steady guards are hard to come by, and especially ones who operate well in our system, because it's not just putting any guard in there. We have a very specific type for our offensive line. You've got to be very athletic. You've got to be able to pull. You've got to go do all the different running concepts, etc. You've got to be quite versatile in how you operate. And for me, NFL guys like that don't grow on trees. You're going to have to go and draft a guy, and then you kind of just replace him at this point. So I'd like to be able to keep the guy who I know can do it, and hopefully, the injuries were just a one-off. But yeah, his deal, you would hope they'd be able to get something done for a reasonable amount. He seems reasonable enough. He's never given me any reason to believe that he's just going to go out there and demand everything. If he does, see you bye, good luck to you. But, I think he'll take a good deal to stay here because, we're a Super Bowl ready team. You go get a ring. They can get even more money.
I really hope you're right, man. I truly do hope that you are right that he does come back, because that makes it a little bit easier and flexibility for the Lions in the NFL draft. And I want that flexibility. And he's a Pro Bowler. He is a good guard when he's on the field. Everybody knows this. If you could have the continuity of this offensive line, it just that they stay healthy next year. My God, the Lions are going to be able to run the football. They're going to be able to kind of dictate how offenses ran, and so that's so important. And yes, we have all these players on this offense, but the offensive line is the reason why this offense works. It starts with the offensive line. It doesn't start with wide receivers. It doesn't start with the quarterback. It doesn't start with tight ends. That offensive line does everything. If the offensive line is great, the line's going to play great. If the offensive line is booty cheeks, we've seen the offense, it can play booty cheeks.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got to take a look ahead of the broader situation as well. We are in the last year of Taylor Decker's contract. We have Frank, who, he'll be back and playing next year. But if that injury gets much worse, who knows what's happening with him? Obviously, Glasgow's not re-signed yet. There's a lot of uncertainty over the future of this line going forward, and you want to have as many of those pieces in place as possible. Getting Jonah to stay, that then erases a big hole that you need at left guard. because we are eventually going to have a hole there, whether it's we're able to pay Decker another contract, whether we bring Glasgow back on good money, etc. We're going to have to start drafting guys going forward, but you kind of really want that line to at least have one more year together and draft some guys this year to replace them long term to try and maintain the stability of it all. So, it would be good to have him here for the foreseeable future, just with all the change that is going to be coming eventually, because it
There's
will.
a lot of change coming. Frank Ragnow is not going to. This may be his last year. I believe it's kind of his last year. And Taylor Decker, he's coming up on a new contract. Are they going to bring him back? What if they're like, you know what, we want Panay the left side, we're just going to go get a right tackle. So you're right. Like, this is very interesting to see. It's not the mic, folks. Everyone keeps saying it's the mic. It's not the mic at all. It is not. But it's important to, like you said, stay with this offensive line, get the continuity better, and then there you be good to go. So that's kind of what we're trying to see with this offensive line. Can they do that? Can they get a guy? I still think even if Jonah comes back, they need to get a guard. They do. Yeah. Or a guard/center who can play both positions, universal, and groom one for when Frank leaves. So, I mean, it's important to have this offensive line. And then the right guard position. What are we going to do right there? Don't really know right now. And so it's a little bit of a question mark. So that's what we need to get in this draft and this free agency. Make sure this offensive line is good to go. John Kaminsky, I see it in an article on Pride of Detroit talking about what they're going to do with John Kaminsky. I made the video before, and I'm like, yeah, it's question mark. He's getting paid $6 million right now. And he didn't have the best year last year. He needs to come back in this next season. He's got to play better. Or, I don't know, he could be a Tracy Walker.
Yeah, I think so. It's, I wouldn't mess with the deal itself, like restructuring and stuff. That pushes money into the future and puts you on the cap for it, even if he's not here next year. I would just say that, you need to get more out of him. And I think he will know that as well. We've seen how good he can be for us. We've seen a couple of these guys who've had the contracts, have bad second years, but for what you're saving, etc., I wouldn't cut him. I think he's a big part of that line. We saw a little bit towards the end of the year where he looked like we were getting him back again. So, run it back with him. Maybe see if you can just jiggle it around a bit. Maybe it takes a little bit of a pay cut. I don't know. Players don't usually do that, but again, I'm not sort of messing around with that deal. I don't know what home stuff in the future if he's not going to be here, but I like commission. I would still roll with him. I think when you've got good depth in that edge room, when he's not having to be a bookend opposite Hutch or something like that, or you're trying to play him further inside, like he's not meant to. If he's a good depth player on there, we'll see the best of him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you see any other players in a position where we maybe unexpected cut? You see anyone on this list or on this team that you're like, man, they could actually be cut?
I mean, it's tough, isn't it? Because from memory, we've only got like 6 players on over $9.5 million a year. We don't have that many major contracts on the books at the minute. And when you think about it, like one's Taylor, who you're not going to mess with. Like one's Frank, who you're not going to mess with. Jared Goff, his deal is going to change anyhow. We don't know what it's going to be in that case. Hutch, you're not going to mess with his contract. It's like, I don't look when I see any of the big ones. I don't see enough savings to cut guys to make it worth it. And again, I don't like to restructure these guys either. Again, that's not something Brad really does. He's had to because our cap's been so bad. But there's not anyone I seriously see as like a big surprise. Once again, I look at those top 6 or 7 contracts, which are the only big ones we got, and I don't really see any viable candidate in there to do anything with. Like, the only thing I could think would maybe extensions. Like, are you going to extend Taylor? Move a little bit of that money down the line, something like that. I think that might be what we'd see rather than cuts, maybe extensions.
Yeah, I think I'm with you with the extensions. I think that's probably what the next is in line for this football team and this roster. Some of these players get their extensions. Taylor Decker could be looking into it. Obviously, everyone knows Jared Goff is up for an extension. You're right. Like we did pretty good fiscally Brad Holmes did a phenomenal job with these contracts, so we don't need anybody got to do franchise tag on. And if they do cut a guy, it's not like these contracts are horrible. So it's hard. No. It's a little bit difficult. It's just the Tracy Walker one was really it. That was really it, if you ask me. The one that really needed to get cut down and put into a different spot. Now, what's your expectations of Fufutu Melifonwu this year? He's looking really good, probably the last 5-6 games of the year. Can we rely on this guy to, like, legitimately look like he's the next best safety, like in football? Because he played like it the last 5 weeks. He was playing like he's one of the best safeties in football.
He did. That's the trouble. It's getting the consistency, isn't it? I mean, look what we saw with Kirby Joseph last year. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, year 2 is going to be amazing. He's going to be at this high level." And then you sort of saw the year 2 blip, as it were. You saw, he's still good, but he wasn't as good as previous. With Iffy, I mean, this is his contract year now that he's coming into. So you would like to think that this is going to be the year where he really breaks out. And let's not forget, he's been changing position. Obviously, he's been at outside corner. He's now in at safety. So he's had a transition period. He's had to redefine all parts of his game because of where he's playing on the field. But he finally looks like he's hit the nail on the head. I do think he is a long-term part of the future here for us. But before you commit to that, like, you do run the risk of losing him to free agency because you can't be giving him money before he's shown consistency at this. As we've seen sort of a good back end of one season. If, like, up before the trade deadline next year, he's still playing lights out, you're getting paid before you can really lose him, or you run the risk of losing him. But we've got to wait a little longer with him yet. But I do think he's going to be part of that future. He's got the frame, he's got the physique, he's got everything you really need to play well at safety. And hopefully now he's bedded in and he's got his confidence. So, yeah.
100%. I feel like this is not an aberration. If Futu Melifonwu is legit growing, and it's because you just said this, the size and frame and speed. He is a big guy. People don't realize this. He's strong and physical, and he can take a beating. I think this is a legit him taking his career to the next step, and we can rely on him. Now, I'm like you. I'm not going to do no contract extension right now for Futu Melifonwu, but if he plays out of his mind this upcoming season and really it's consistent from what he did the last 5 weeks, I think you do extend him. He's a young player that he was balling at this position, just absolutely balling right at safety. He was one of the best in football the last couple of weeks. So I love his growth. I think he is growing. I think you're seeing this. Derek Barnes growing. Futu Melifonwu growing. These players are taking that next step because the coaching staff, they know how to develop the talent and get the best out of them on something that we're not used to. And so we can rely on an Futu Melifonwu. We can rely a little bit on Derek Barnes to be a pretty damn good linebacker like he did this past year. Really took a big step forward for his career. So that's something that's really, really good. We got free agency in about, 2.5 weeks? Starting here real soon. Super excited. Everybody's excited for free agency, especially when we're really getting close, right? Everyone's content. If you're a YouTuber, Royal Lines, everybody knows this. We're in a little bit of a rut spot right now, but here in about 2 weeks, it's going to really skyrocket with NFL free agency. So when you look at this market, if you're Brad Holmes, what are you going to do in free agency? Who are you going to target and why?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Like, you need to be sensible with your money, but at the same point, you do need, you are in your window now, and this might be the last opportunity you have to spend money in some time because all these big deals are going to hit. But I would just do what Brad does. Brad seems to be able to find the value where it's due. He'll avoid the top of the line high contracts, the big risk ones, and he might go with some of the safer options. Cam Sutton hit the market last year. I know it's 11 million, but it wouldn't surprise me if he went after the corner market again. The whole room needs a tear out, and we still need a cornerback one here. And as rich as the draft is for rookie corners, like, history would say that it's going to take time to develop them. Surtain and guys like this are anomalies when it comes to how quick they've adapted to the NFL. It's no guarantee that you're going to get one that's going to be a stud straight off the bracket. So I would maybe expect to look to go corner again. Someone like Jalen Jones is too expensive, I think, as much as it would be nice. But, I would expect a vet to come in that regard. Maybe if you're looking at defensive tackles as well, possibly you might want to get some more veterans in the room there. Hopefully Broderick comes along next year. You've still got Liam in there who's going to be paid a very handsome amount soon as well. It's tough. Again, I'd be trying to find where the value is. Because I think players are going to want to come to play here now. And I think they might take a little less money to do it, but I don't know who that's going to be. So, but yeah, it just needs to make a little bit of a splash, I do think, this year. And we've got 4 picks in the top 100 of the draft, which is great. But yeah, I would be going to try and find a corner one if I could.
100%. You definitely got to go out there and get another corner. Because even if you draft the guy with the pick 29, the odds are he's not going to be, some an elite corner right there game one. It takes a little bit of time for these guys to develop, and we're in a position where we need to win right now. And there's some corners you can get in free agency, but like you were saying, man, the issue is like we got Cam Sutton this last offseason in free agency. We expected him to be better than what he was. And so now you're looking back and you're like, did we overpay for him a little bit? You know what I'm saying? And so you don't want to get in that position where, okay, we're going to get this guy, but then was it really worth it? But there's Snead out there. Like you said, Johnson's out there. There's some players that the Lions could get at the corner position, but we got to get it right. I'm with you. I think they go for at least one name that we'll know about, and then it's kind of going for depth there and maybe unknown names a little bit, but they need to get somebody. I like to get Danielle Hunter. That's my prize covet free agent. That's what I'd love to have. But if they don't go that route and they get a corner or somebody else that really can contribute this year, I'm perfectly fine with that. If we could just get a starter on defense, just one starter on defense. I trust Brad Holmes in the draft, but I feel like we need to get just one guy because you can't get everything. The odds are we're not going to get, like with this last draft, right? You're not going to get a freaking Sam Laporta and a Brian Branch and a Jack Campbell, Jahmyr Gibbs, where they come in here, you're like, holy crap, these guys are amazing.
I don't know, Mike. Brad seems to do it every year. So I think one of the things you can see, I think we might see Emmanuel Mosley back as well. Now, I know consecutive ACLs and that, but that is exactly the sort of move where if he pans out, and we're probably going to pay him less this year because his market is going to be tiny. Like, if you're giving him a very small $2-3 million deal, etc., and he plays to his expectations, you're going to get stupidly good value for money. If he's, healthy enough to have a good chunk of the offseason playing and that, I think you would see Mosley back. Now, I know everyone would not love that. You would probably have him as a camp body more than anything to see whether he's fit enough to compete and go on the 53-man roster. But I would certainly expect to see that from him.
He's
along
boomer
that hill to
bust.
see if we can get that. Yeah, exactly.
He's a boomer
but that's
bust
where Brad
free
seems
agent.
to have gone. He seems to have gone a lot with, they've had an injury, or they're looking for a prove-it deal like CJ was, and you can get a little bit of value with them and potentially, more than the sum of your parts type thing with them. So that's how he's operated a lot. I don't know who, coming into this free agency cycle fits that bill. I've not really done a ton on it, but, if you do know of any of those guys, maybe they'd probably be on the list.
Yeah, look, people may not like Emmanuel Mosley coming back, but I think at a veteran minimum deal, absolutely you take a chance on it there. $6 million? No, we're not doing anything like that. But veteran minimum, it's a boomer bust. And when you're doing veteran minimum, if it's a bust, it's not really that big of a deal that they busted out. It's like you're taking a chance. $1 million? Oh, who cares? If it pans out, you end up being really good for this team, and so that would be an option for them for sure in the secondary, and I'd be fine with that. But anything more than veteran minimum, I'm not doing. That's just it's too much of a risk, if you ask me. You've been studying this draft for a while. What do you think is the biggest positions of need, and who are some players the Lions could look to draft in this up-and-coming draft?
God, no. Well, position to need first. I think it's corner, isn't it? Are we all universally agreed at this point that corner is really high up there, depending on what we do on free agency? Then I think it's your edge room. I get for a lot of people, I know edge is the serious thing now, but we do have Houston coming back next year, which for me kind of negates it just a little bit. But I think it's corner, it's edge. And I'd still be after an outside wide receiver as well. I still think we need one of those, maybe high, I don't know. But sort of those three would be the big ones for me. And then I think you've got to put safety in there as well for depth purposes. You want to keep getting these young guys in there, churning them out, hopefully get maybe a steady veteran presence to put in there with them if CJ Gardner-Johnson does not come back. But yeah, it's between corner and edge, I think, Mike, that would be the positions for this. And maybe a little bit of DT as well, but certainly corner is where you'd be calling first, and I think edge is where you'd be calling pretty soon.
I feel like in this year's draft, a lot of defensive tackles are pretty good. You have a good depth at defensive tackle this year's draft, so you get some there. Edge, it's going to be difficult to get like an elite guy like right off where you're sitting at pick 29. But you're right. I like the corners in this year's draft. And I really hope that there is no run on cornerbacks because you can get a really good one at 29 if there's no run. If it's just – it's like, okay, we can get a stud right there, and that's what I'd really, really like for the Detroit Lions in here. You know, at least get a solid 7 for sure like that. But if you want to go interior defensive line, you want to stop the hard D and the strong D, you know, you got to be able to have those big old guys to just clog the holes. It's all about clogging. It's all about stopping and penetrating through there and to make sure that we get to the ball as we sack. So it's really important for this football team to get better on this defensive line. There is some players you can do that. What is one player maybe for the edge position or cornerback position that the Lions should take a look at that maybe you're not hearing a lot in the NFL draft or hearing a lot right now, but would be a good fit for our beloved Detroit Lions?
Oh, in corners, that's easy. I'm a massive Abrams Drain fan, and no one will talk about him because there's so many good corners knocking around this year. But in terms of instinctual corners who just gravitate to where the ball is and can make plays, he's one of them. Him and Rackstraw at Missouri have been an immense tandem there, and you've got the safeties coming out of there this year. It's kind of been like a bit of a DBU for them, but Abrams Drain is certainly the one I'm all over in terms of the Lions going for. I think he fits our scheme well. He's good against the run, and as I say, I need an instinctual guy at corner because we seem to have lacked those over the years. Just guys who know where the ball is. They're really good at keeping the receiver and the quarterback in their line of vision so they can make plays on the ball, because so many times our guys seem to get caught out of position. I'm looking for a guy who's got intellect, and I'm looking for a guy who's got ball hawking skills here. There are a few more of them, but in terms of guys who've not been talking about, then Abrams Drain's the one there. Edges I've not looked at as much because for me it's not been, it's not high up my list there at the minute. Off the top of my head, I'd be looking at, I'm going to butcher his name, the guy from Houston, the edge there. He had a really, really great Shrine Bowl. I will have to come back to you on that, but certainly on corner, Abrams Drain would be the guy for me.
Folks, we got 120, and we just got a $20 super chat from my guy, Mike the Goat McCall. He says, hashtag FGB, love listening to the both of you guys. Let's take a vote. Who thinks these guys are twins separated at birth? I vote yes. Go Lions. Yes, we are separated at birth. My last name is Kimber. It's actually big in England. Okay, so 100%. That is my ancestry. I'm actually Ant-Man's brother. You didn't know that. You didn't know that. I didn't know that either.
You're Mike Man. You're Mike Man. I'm Ant-Man. You're Mike Man.
Mike McCall, appreciate you, man. You're always a real one, always dropping donos. Mike McCall is the GOAT on this bad boy, and I appreciate that for that $20 super chat. But yeah, we're separated at birth, 100%, except for he's 6'5", and I'm 6 foot tall. There's a big difference in height. He's a big man. Oh, crazy. So what about Edge from Ohio State, JT Tuimoloau? I cannot do these names, man. I would have to look. I haven't looked at Tuimoloau. Have you?
No. Again, I've not done too much. The only ones who would really I would love Jared Verse out of Florida State. But he's going to go way too high for us. He's just
top 10,
he's
top
been
12.
An absolute. Yeah, he's a wrecking machine. It's like Jazane Newton. If you wanted a D tackle, I'd take Jazane Newton every day of the week. But he's not going to be where we pick. He's going to be gone long before that. So, I mean, outside of that, I actually really like the Western Michigan guy, Neeland like as a later round pick, but in terms of the upper ones, I know everyone's on about Darius Robinson at the minute, and everyone's in love with him. But again, 1-year performer in college, been there 5 years. We had the same conversation with Adebaware last year. I ain't sold on these. I ain't sold on these pajama warriors who ain't done much in college. So,
got to do it in college. Got to do it. Pajama warriors.
Exactly. He's had a really good year. He's had a really good year in college, but he's had 5 there, and that's been the first one. And I just tend to gravitate away from those guys personally. The other intriguing one will be Latu, the UCLA guy, the one who broke his.
Yeah.
Again, he's had 2 phenomenal years, and he's absolutely amazing. He's a little short. He's got little short arms, but like he's got every pass rush move in the book. He's amazing.
Got some short arms.
Yeah, it's just that neck injury. It's like he's played 2 full years, but when you've had such a severe neck injury, it's like when you get your first stinger, when you get, it's just worrying, especially given our history of taking injury-prone players.
Yes.
Has sometimes bitten us a little bit. But, like, again, I don't know if he'd fall for us. I think these, like, the top-tier edge rushers, they're going to be gone before
I think he'll be gone
we go
before
up
us.
for them.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't put it past Brad. I think Brad might trade up again this year. I have a gut feeling that where we are, we're nearest. We showed that we can compete for a Super Bowl this year. If there's a guy he's in love enough with, who he thinks could come in and be a big contributor at a place we need, and could contribute this year towards a big campaign for us, I think he would do it. Maybe not with picks this year, but picks in the future. But I would expect him to be aggressive again this year. So maybe we can go and get some of these guys if one slips a little bit.
I agree. I think they could trade up for sure, and they value premium talent. They that's what they value. And if the guys that they like is starting to kind of fall a little bit, and they're like, now we have a shot, they will trade up and get it. They will. That Brad Holmes is an aggressive general manager, and he will do it, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Or you could trade back, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But I always believe go get that premium talent. Like, if you feel like this guy is really good, go get him. Like, don't mess around with that stuff. And get that guy, because the difference between an average player and someone that's extremely great can take your team from a playoff contender to an NFC championship game. And that's what happened in this last year's draft. We had a lot of players that can do that. And so I'm all about it. You don't remember what you give up. I don't even remember what we gave up to get Brian Branch when we traded up. Don't care what we gave up. We got Brian Branch, a hell of a player. Who cares? Like, who cares? Like, no one cares. Yeah. So go do the trade up if you feel that's one of those players. And I'm all about that, folks. I can't find my little thing to bring your guys' comments up, but I'm going to do QA anyway, so I'm just going to read it off here. You're not going to see your comment, but I am going to read it off here. And so if you got a question, do the hashtag Lions. And that's how it. 9 Drink says, how much would Snead be? 17+ million a year?
A lot.
A lot?
A lot.
17 plus, 18 million. And just think about this, Cam Sutton's 11. So that is a lot of money investment into a corner. But he did play well, especially in the postseason. And that's the best time you want somebody to play well. Yeah, man.
This is still you can tell, like, some of us still have PTSD from the Patricia era, but I still have kittens when talking about giving massive money to a player who has won multiple Super Bowls in his career already. Which, yes, Trey Flowers, Jamie Collins, all these guys who we spunked a ton of money on. And because I'm not saying anything about him himself, but he's got nothing left to prove in the NFL. Like, he's going out for a big fat payday because he's gone and won several Super Bowls at this point in his career, which, terrific for him, great, love it. I just, because of what we did under that regime, paying all these former has-beens and, the guys who've gone there and done it, maybe their desire is not as much as it was in chasing for them. I just don't like it. I mean, he could be great, don't get me wrong, but this is my own personal trauma from the era of Bob Quinn and his ineptitude. I just don't like paying multiple-time former Super Bowl winners a whole bagload of money. It's just, no.
It can be devastating to your team, too. I mean, that Trey Flowers contract, the Jamie Collins contract hurt us for a while. And even when they were not on the team, it's still hurting us with the dead cap hit. So that's what's so difficult about NFL free agency, folks. It can be boom or bust, and if it's boom, it's great. You get a guy like We've got like Golden Tate in free agency, right? Marvin Jones, that's the first time we got Marvin Jones really good in free agency. But then we've had the Trey Flowers, right? We had the Jamie Collins. We had these guys, they ain't do nothing. And it sets you back. So that's the fine line these guys got to go. So if they're not going the biggest names you see out there, I'm not necessarily upset about it. Because they're going to get selected guys that they know, and I think that's important. The odds are is even if you put a big contract out there to one of these big-name free agents, you're not going to get exactly what you expect to get out of it. Simple. Cam Sutton.
Exactly.
Right there. Like nobody – I think we expected a little bit better than what he did this year, and it wasn't the case. And
exactly.
It's rough.
You just never know. You just never know with these guys. It's like, for me, I've always been, you want, especially for this type of team, I think you want guys who are aligned to the same goal as you, who are striving to win their first Super Bowl, who are like, they are great players and they've not been there yet. You know, like Madubuike, odds are he stays a Raven, but as a defensive tackle, you insert him into our team, given how close he's been with the Ravens and not got there, like, he's got an incentive to come here and go and win one.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that would be fearsome having him. He's going to cost way too much money, I think. I don't see us doing a Madubuike level contract.
Yeah.
But if you were to, like, that would be the type of guy I'd give it to, the one who still has that hunger and desire to go and win a big one. That would be where I'd be at, just personally me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just like, it's like you find yourself a good woman, right? Name Emily or whatever, just some person out there, and then you just go to town and do what you got to do, and you get the most out of it, right? You get the best out of it, and that's what you want to do with free agency right there, is you get one and you get the best out of it and the best production that you possibly could get, because when you get the good production, it's never-ending feeling. It's good. It's a good feeling. So you got to be up there like that. And we'll see. Now, somebody just said here, let's see, we got a question. It says, trade up 15 to take Nate Wiggins. He wants to trade up from 29 to 15. That's probably the area that he would be there to get that cornerback. Get that cornerback from Clemson. Guys get turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Would you trade up to get my man Wiggins?
Again, this is my own sort of personal thing with the draft class. It's not me saying we shouldn't, but in terms of the guys I like, etc., I don't think you need to do that. Like, I think there are other corners out there who you're going to get a little bit later on, because it's going to be expensive too. If I'm going up to 15, I'm going for someone like Jazane Newton. Like, he's the best of the defensive tackle class, and I would want to go out and get him, and like, I'd be willing to do that. But Wiggins, for me, doesn't fit. I know he's rumored to be going to break the 40 record, I think is his thing. They say he's been running 4.2s in training, etc. Dude is hella fast, and he's a good football player. But just with how many corners there are knocking around this year and how many might fit our system, I just feel like it might be a waste of resources for me. That is me personally. I'm not saying he's not a great player, he is. But I would only be trading up for other positions, not for corners, not in a corner-loaded class.
Ryan Gibson here, Motor City Dan Campbell. Do you think that Brad Holmes will draft another offensive weapon in the first round? I don't think they're going to do a wide receiver. I don't think they're going to do running back or a tight end. Do you consider guard potentially weapon? I know, but that's the only really position I can see them going, unless some player abnormally falls that you would never expect. I don't see that being the case. I just don't, because the first part of this draft is offensive heavy, and you're going to see wide receivers, you're going to see linemen go, and quarterbacks go pretty early, and it's going to push some of this defensive talent back to the Detroit Lions. Good thing. And so I think you'll be able to get max with BPA as well as a position of need at the same time. I think there'll be a corner, an edge, or a DT, or a guard. Somebody will be sitting there at 29 that will be PPA of one of those positions. That's the way that I feel. What do you think, Ant-Man?
I think the only elephant in the room for offense would be this offensive tackle class, because we do need depth for the future, especially, like I said, we're going into the last year of Taylor's deal. can we afford to pay Taylor another contract on good money if Penny and Amon-Ra and all this are coming up? Is it a class? Because this is a loaded offensive tackle class as well. So, if above you, the corners start going, your edges go, a few others go, quarterbacks, if 3 or 4 of them go, then some of those offensive tackles start getting pushed a bit down the board. And there's some really good potential, there's maybe 10 or 11 who are first round or high top of the second sort of billing here. So that might be things. We know Brad loves trenches, right? Like Brad has surprised us with 100%. Trench picks when we didn't expect it before. So if it is going to be an offensive pick, I would say the elephant in the room would be offensive tackle, given how many there are. There's no running backs worth a damn, no tight ends worth a damn there. And the wide receivers, as you've said, the good ones like Neighbors and that will be long gone at this point. So it will be offensive tackle, if anything, for me.
I wouldn't be upset if they did that either, just because I know the future. Like, you got to think about Taylor Decker and everything. So I wouldn't be upset, and it's really difficult, folks, to get a tackle that can be good. And that's a cornerstone type of piece. Like, you need to have, we found that out with Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow. I don't think it's going to happen, but if there is a player that falls, then I'm not gonna complain about it. Not at all. No. It's a position you need to make sure you have, and I don't want to ever worry about the offensive line ever again. Like, I just want to be like, this is our strength. We are going to beat the hell out of people physically up front, and that's how we win. And we're going to continue to be good. So if they do go tackle, I will not complain, even if we have tackle. I'm not going to complain at all, because you can't just think about the now. You got to think about the future as well. And it's really, we don't want to get in a position. Think about this. We're in a position where Frank Ragnow retires next year, right? We haven't got a guard really to fill one of these spots. And then Taylor Decker, we're having issues with his contract, or maybe they don't want to re-up. Then you're having to really have an issue there on that offensive line for that. It could be a disaster. So if their thought process is, well, look, maybe we don't extend them, I don't know. I think they will, but I don't know. Then go ahead and take it. Don't get upset about it. But still, I really want to see defense. Make no mistake about it. I want to see defense go very, very early. But I'm not going to bitch about a tackle, because it is difficult. It is difficult to find. And so if you find one, hey, that's one less thing you got to worry about for the next couple of years. Very important there. Offensive line, we found out as Lions fans, we've been talking about it forever, but I think everybody knows that you want to win in this league, you need to have an offensive line. I think all teams figured that out. All the teams that won had a pretty good offensive line that were in the playoffs. I mean, that is so important now, and we need to make sure that we have that. So I'm not going to complain about there. Let's see some more questions. Unfortunately, I can't figure out how to put it up. We're trying to, but before. So how do you guys feel about TJ Tampa? TJ Tampa. What do you think about, would he even be there at 29? I don't know. But he has been mocked to the Detroit Lions a couple of times. And look, I think he would be an all right pick, but he could be gone before 29.
I love me some Iowa State because I love to watch the spectacle at quarterback. But their defense it's a solid factory of talent for the NFL. You're getting good guys out there. I like taller cornerbacks. Me personally, he's 6'2". I think he's about 200 pounds, something like that. He's got good frame. I really like him. He's very good physical. Frame. Guy you can use against the run game. Really, Iowa State good. They create them very physical. I think the only knock with him, what's the knock with him now? I think it's like he's not very instinctive, like in terms of being able to jump routes and create opportunities, bits like that. But in terms of like his zone and press coverage, all that sort of stuff, it's really good. I wouldn't mind him. Like, again, not top of my corner list because, again, I have my own personal preferences. But if we were to get him, I would be very happy. Like, I know he's coming from a good system and he's got the exact frame we need. We need a bigger guy, especially
bigger
in
guys.
Our
I like the bigger guys too.
With Christian,
yep,
because we got Christian Watson, Justin Jefferson, these big tough guys in conference, the taller ones. I want a big scrapper who's going to go in there and make life uncomfortable for them, and he certainly fits that mold.
We got some big receivers in the NFC North too, and I fully expect. I don't know. Maybe Chicago doesn't go wide receiver, but they could get, like, if they wanted to trade down and get Marvin Harrison Jr. We need to have a big cornerback out there, and I believe in size as well. Size does matter. Size does matter. Look, if you
we need to erect a force field if Harrison comes here. He's the one player from this draft I don't want in conference, like, more than anybody. I would take anybody else from this draft in conference except him. I don't want him nowhere near us. Dude's stupidly good.
Stupidly good. And that would be a disaster.
It's not even fun.
That would suck. And that's why I keep telling people, folks, the NFC North is going to be tough. Because we could be... It could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen, but it could happen, and that would be an issue. And we need to have a guy with size. Size does matter. It's really important. Look, you can be short or small, right? You can still do a good job being small, but you have to be really good at the hip, turning your hips, right? You have to be good at locating the balls. You have to be good at knocking it down. Stay with your man. But if you're bigger, get away with your stride's a little bit better. You can jump a little bit higher. I like the bigger guys. I always liked a Richard Sherman. I liked his size. Size absolutely. And now we're talking about all ways of life, folks. Size does matter. You got Ant-Man is 6'5". Okay?
Yeah.
6'5" guy is tall.
Yeah, it does. Size does matter. But again, it is all about what is up here as well.
It's all about the head. Mm-hmm.
The smarter you are, I don't mind small guys. If they've got the IQ, I don't care. If they've got the technique, I don't care, because they're just as good. Size is, it's secondary to IQ.
Yeah, you got to have a smart head. You got to have a good head to be able to play in this game, turn your head around, all that lovely stuff. We've seen, if you don't do that, you're going to get pass interference. That's never a good thing. And then it's 3rd and long, or what I call 3rd and flag. Continue to go on and see there. You know what I'd really like to see? I would like to see Stephen Gilmore a little bit in preseason, a little bit more. He didn't get to play this year, and I love that he stayed stride for stride in all the preseason. Maybe he could finally take a step forward. That'd be huge, man. Somebody out of nowhere like Stephen Gilmore, or bring his brother in here for a free agent for 1 year. That would be epic, too.
There is a reason these guys are kept on the team for so long. We've seen it because a lot of people this year were saying, you know what, we should just do away with Iffy. Nothing's happening with him. He's done. He's gone. But he's ended up doing well. I know there were questions over Barnes coming into the year and should he be here? Should he be gone? And the fact is, all these guys take a different amount of time to develop at the NFL level, especially for someone like Stephen Gilmore, who is an undrafted free agent. He's coming from a small school as well. There is a lot to adapt to. It's Big Fry, competing against the Sun Belt and then coming up to the NFL straight away in terms of receivers you're facing. And sometimes it takes a very long time. It's the same with Broderick Martin, right? He's come out the CUSA, he's coming up to the NFL level. The gap is enormous. More so than between that and the SEC and stuff like that. The gap is huge, and then you've got to take another big step up, and it takes time. You've got to perfect your technique. You've got to perfect your craft. You've got to get so much right. You've got to get in game shape for it, and sometimes it might take a year. It might take 2 years. It might take 3 years. But the fact is, this coaching staff, specifically Brad and Dan, know the guys that have got it. They will not put a timeline on when they will be ready, but they've got it. There's a reason they hang. So with Gilmore, like I say, I'm not surprised we didn't see much of him. I'm certainly not surprised we didn't see much of Broderick this year. You've got to invest time into these guys, and you've got to wait, and you've got to be patient with them. But eventually, they will come good. If they can do it with Iffy, if they can do it with Barnes, if they can do it with all these guys, then great. Hell, even J-Mo's taking his time. He's a first-round pick. At the end of the day, there's a reason they say grade a draft after 3 years, not 1, 3. Because some guys, it does take 3, and there's nothing wrong with that.
it is important to be patient with some of these players, and nobody expect Derek Barnes to come out here and do. I remember we gave Hutchinson after one game, he's a bust. I'm like, come on, guys, give these players a little bit of time. Everybody develops at a different rate. Be patient. Broderick Martin didn't do anything last year. We'll see if he can make a stride this year. Well, but give him 2 more years. Give a player 3 years after being drafted. If they can't do it after that, then maybe it's not going to happen. But we've seen it. Iffy and Derek Barnes, massive example of players who, if you're patient with and they develop, it could be dividends for a franchise. We literally have a safety that was playing like one of the best in football. He just started to develop. And it's just, it takes, the reason we got the NFC Championship game, make no mistake about it, folks, was Iffy taking that jump. I don't think we get there if he doesn't do what he did. Because he got that big interception in the Vikings game. He was just all over the field, sacking the quarterback. He was wreaking havoc, and we were patient. It developed. That's what we need to keep doing with all these guys. Be patient, let them develop, and if it ain't working after 3 years, okay. But let's not give up on a guy so quick after we draft him. Let's not do that. No, be patient with these guys. We cannot allow that to take over where we're just, if they don't work out the first year, we're done with them and we're just going to let them go. And then they go to another team, play well, and then we look like Boo-Boo the Fool, and we don't want to look like Boo-Boo the Fool. We want to look like a good football team, ran well franchise. Folks, we've been on for nearly an hour, and I got to go drive up to the radio station for the huge show, 96.1 FM locally. I got to take my kid, got to drop her off, will be watched. So make sure you're on the huge show, 4 to 6. Actually going to be on there with, you got Huge, he's going to be there, as well as Eric Zane. So if you all know who Eric Zane was for WGRD, he's now on there. So we're going to be having some fun, talking some Detroit Lions for a couple hours. Join us on there. Ant-Man, where can the people find you?
So you can find me at Roar of the Lions UK. We are a group of Detroit Lions fans from across the pond here in Old Blighty. You can catch us on Mondays. Myself and one of the other guys do a college football show during the week. We're looking at the HBCU Legacy Bowl this week. And you can catch us all around, really. So Roar of the Lions UK, come find us.
All right, folks. Appreciate that. And with that said, adios.
Searching for greatness in a sea of the dying and shameless, a sea of the aimless. I don't wanna be one of the nameless. I'ma wake up with the mindset that one day I'm gonna make it. And I don't think I'll be fine if I don't break my limitations. Don't try to stop me, I exist to write my own story. I'll make a decision if I want some peace or if I want the glory, yeah. Don't want a life that is complacent or possibly boring, I just want a life that is worth every day exploring,
My whole life I just wanted someone who would notice me. My whole life I just wanted to be somebody to be. Yeah, I just wanna be great.